Good evening and welcome to the W The Hype Show. I'm Valerie Kelso, the founder and CEO of the show. And tonight we have got a wonderful special lady. She came all the way from Dallas to be on our show tonight. Her name is Denise Montgomery. But before I get into the show, I just wanted to do a few preliminaries before we start. We will not be having our bully ride against bully next week. We will be having it later down in the fall when it gets a little bit cooler. And also, if anybody would like to come onto our show, you are welcome to come onto our show at any time. Just give us a call and let us know what you would like to talk about, and we will welcome everybody onto our show. As long as you've got a story and something that can encourage someone else in the community, we are willing to accept you. And if you would like to sponsor or donate or be a mentor to somebody else in the community, we are quite happy to also have you on our show. So we are looking for people who will sponsor our show. So if you've got a business and you feel that our show will fit your business, please reach out so that we can partner together. So once again, welcome to the Don't Believe the Hype Show. I'm Valerie Kelso and this is Denise Montgomery. Yes.
Welcome. Thank you so much for having me.
So Miss Denise, as I always tell you, because I usually butcher people's names and butcher their biography, I'm going to let Miss Denise tell you a little bit about herself, and then we'll take the show from there.
Thank you for having me.
You're
first
welcome.
of all. Again, my name is Denise Montgomery. I'm a native Texan. I was born and raised in Dallas.
Okay.
I was educated in the Dallas Independent School District, and then I went on to teach in Dallas for 23 years. Now, at this point in my life, I retired and I'm teaching GED. I absolutely love teaching adults because I realized when I was teaching that my students had problems because the parents had problems.
Mm-hmm.
So if the parent can't read, the child can't read. So I decided some 12 or 13 years ago that I would start teaching adults. And I just fell in love with it, and that's what I'm doing. I'm also as I said, I'm a teacher. I'm a speaker. I love going out doing speaking engagements. And my passion is writing. I've been writing for as long as I can remember. When I was a little girl, I used to break out with these sores in my hand.
Oh, wow.
And a big sore in my head.
Yeah.
So I called it allergic to summer. So what it would do, everybody was outside playing, and what kid is going to play with a child with sores?
Okay.
So my grandmother would put these gloves on. I had gloves before Michael Jackson. So so she would put these gloves on me, but I had to stay in the house. But what I didn't realize while I was in the house, I would write. I would write stories to myself, and I would write poems to myself.
Okay.
Don't ask me what none of them are. I don't know what none of them are. But I would write and I would read. And what God was doing, He was developing that love for writing in me then. So years go by. I've always used writing as a source of comfort. So I just started writing my books, and then I have a nonprofit as well. I have a nonprofit that helps the downtrodden and the underprivileged.
Okay.
So it's called Three Leaf Literacy, Leadership, and Learning Institute.
That is awesome. I didn't know that you got a non-profit.
Yes.
Because what it was, I met Miss Denise a few
weeks
ago at the Arts Distillery, where she was part of the play that I went to, that Michael was in. And I did not know that racism was so bad. We knew it was bad, but because I'm from England, we never had the same kind of racism that you have in this country. Yes. And part of the play was about what Miss Denise had gone through. So I said to her, "Have you got a book?" And she said yes. And I asked her, "I need you to come onto my show." Yes. So I'll tell the people a little bit about what your book is called.
The name of the book is I Want to Go. When I was 10 years old. Well, first of all, the history of the State Fair. The fair opened in 1897 or 67, I forget. All the way up to 1967, the State Fair was segregated. African Americans had one day. The fair comes every year in October. At that time, it was the whole month of October.
Okay.
But African Americans had one day that they could go, and that was the second Monday in October. And my grandmother lovingly called it Colored People's Day, because all people all over the state of Texas Can you imagine that many people? And all of us had to go on that one day, and that was the second Monday in October. I was 10 years old. I'm telling my age. I was 10 years old. It was 1965, and I had been saving up my money, and I was so excited because all I wanted to do was see Big Tex, because his voice would boom all across the state fair. I got up that morning, Valerie, and I was so excited. We were out of school. I had my fair tickets, and I never forget, my sisters kept saying, it's gonna rain, it's gonna rain. And I kept saying, no, it's not. It rained. It rained, and I remember standing my mother had this plate glass window in her front door, and I remember standing at that window saying, I wanna go. Why can't we go? And my grandmother kept saying, well, Grandma, can we go tomorrow? She said, no, baby, it won't be Colored People's Day. And a 10-year-old, I'm going, I don't care what color it is, I just want to go. But that memory haunted me, and it stayed with me. And as I continued to have experiences where I had to face racism and discrimination, but that one memory stayed with me. So 2018, I'm in Houston. I meet this publisher, and he tells me, you haven't written her story yet. And I'm going, I don't know what he's talking about. He says, you haven't written her story yet. And when I walked away, I saw myself at that door again.
Wow.
And I started writing. And I ended up, here's the book.
I want to go at the age of 10.
Yeah.
Because I never had that segregation in India.
And I just can't imagine
And
that. That's just so hard to believe. No time in England?
our racism was different, you know what I'm saying? We didn't, it wasn't like blacks here, whites there, it wasn't like that. The only time my parents would say, oh, you can't go to the football match because we had bullies, you know what I'm saying, which is different. When I went to the football, in Arlington,
Yeah,
the Cowboy,
the Cowboy Stadium,
what's the other one? The Rangers.
Yes.
I went to the Rangers game for the first time with a lady named Marie, and I says, so where does the away team sit in? She says, oh, we sit all around. I said, you are? You sit all around, not in England. The ones and the other team sits on the other side.
Really?
Yeah, because the racism is different because, say if you supported Manchester and they supported Nottingham, Manchester and Nottingham can't sit together. Because if one team loses, trust me, they're going to beat the hell out of the other team. You understand what I'm saying? And if we went to a football match and a team lost, then we would be the ones that would get beat.
Oh my God.
So we wasn't allowed even going to church. We had to make sure we was home, so we wasn't in where there were, that if the team lost, that we was going to get beat upon. But the only time I was 13 when Roots came out on TV, and that was when our eyes were open. Up until then, it was like we all went to school together. It didn't matter. We played together. My two best friends were white. You know what I mean? Not black, although we had a lot of black people in our school. And you have to remember that most of our parents came from Jamaica. They came from other small islands. So it wasn't like we was actually born. I was born in England, but we wasn't in there in the 50s and the 40s when that probably racism was real bad. So when my dad and mom came over, they told my mom and dad, oh, well, on the door it says no blacks, no white, no blacks, no Irish, and no dogs.
Oh, goodness.
You know what I mean? So we all used to be, one family would be, three family might be in one house, and then we would save enough money, then they would get somewhere, and that's how it was. But it wasn't like I could say, well, I was called loads of nigger names or I didn't receive none of that. So going to the state fair, I mean, we went to the fair, everything, it was like normal. But when I went to the play and I heard what really took place over here, it was like a big eye-opener for me. I'm thinking, not even going to the fair to see Big Tex.
But at that time, Val, because we didn't know any better, that was the norm. I mean, here I was 10 years old, but I have sisters and brothers that were way older than me. So that was the norm for them. Okay, we're not going to the fairs. No big deal, Denise. My grandmother called me Lisa, and she was like, Lisa, baby, we'll go, you'll go next year. Well, 2 years later, the fair was desegregated. So then we could go all we wanted. But the sad part about it though, even though we only had that one day, they didn't stop the white people from coming. If the white people wanted to come that one day, it was okay. Because, so, and then we had the problem with, if they wanted to get on the ride, we had to stand back and let them get on the ride first. Or, you know, if you went, it's not that you couldn't go on the fair, but you wouldn't be served.
Yeah.
If you went to the fair and it wasn't your day, you wouldn't be served and you would be treated harshly or whatever. So, because, you know, Jim Crow laws were still in effect back that time, and it was separate, you know, separate but equal. But, you know, so we still had to deal with all of that. But at the time, if you grow up in something, that is your norm. You don't know anything until different. And then, like I said, in '67, it was desegregated. Everybody could go. And then I didn't even want to go.
I think I probably went twice in all the time I've been here, in the 11 years I've been in the country. Because to me, this fair is no different from if we went to a fair back in England, you know what I'm saying? So it was nothing for us. What got me when I went to the fair and I saw chicken fried steak, and that was, what is chicken fried steak? That was it for me when I went to the fair. Chicken fried steak, I never heard this thing in my life. And I kept looking and looking, and you know what I mean? And
how do they fry chicken like steak?
Yes. That's what got me when I went to the steak fair. That was the first thing I saw, chicken fried steak. And I kept looking at it, and even when I went back to England, because I hadn't got married at the time, I was thinking, what is a chicken fried steak? And then I realized it's just a piece of steak. But you know, but racism, like I was telling you earlier, I didn't really face a lot of racism until I got older. My first job, my second job, because I've always had my own business. I had my own restaurant, takeaway, and I used to do child minding, so I never really went out in the public sector because I had my daughter so early. And like I was telling you, when I got the interview, the woman interviewed me over the phone, and then all of a sudden she says to me, when I went to sign my paper for me to start work, she looked at me and she says, oh. And I knew the next word she was going to say
is, I didn't know you were black.
Yeah. Okay. But other than that, maybe I've blotted things out in my mind, I really don't know. But I don't look at people as skin colour. I try and just take everybody as I see them. If they want to call me a name, I just tell them, just call me whatever you want, but don't call me late for my dinner. And I'll leave it at that. You understand what I'm saying?
I like that, yes. But as a result of going through that experience, you know, I have a son. It made me very, I hold on to him because we were taught to, when you go to the fair, don't look in white people's eyes. Don't, you know, if they don't say anything to you, don't say anything to them. And, you know, growing up, we knew we had to be at home by a certain time because we were worried. And so I have a tendency, even though my son has never had to deal with anything I had to do with, but it has made me more cautious of him. And, you know, and I have to, and when he saw the play, he was like, oh, yeah, Mama, now he knows. Why am I so cautious? Why am I so worried when I don't hear from him? Because, you know, and that was ingrown in me. That grew up in me.
So did you not ever explain to your son?
I never know. To be honest with you, Val, I never wanted him to know what I went through. I told him some of the things, but you remember the scene in the play where you were in the Natural History Museum and with the beach?
Yes.
Okay, when he saw that scene, my mother and I had gone to Florida, to Miami. I took my mother to Florida, and we were out on the beach, and we were sitting there minding our own business. The water was way down there, and these 3 white kids, 4, it was 3 or 4 of them, instead of them walking here, they came and they walked over me and my mother, and they threw sand up in our face.
Wow.
And my anger, I wanted to fight, but my mother knew I would go to jail. So basically she said, no baby, don't do that, just wait. Well, I was like, I want to fight. So my son, when he heard that, he was going, Mama, you never told me that. I said, no, I didn't want him to know. You know, I was just trying to protect him because I didn't want to change his way of thinking. I wanted him to grow up with an open mind that God created all of us, and he didn't have to deal with that. And so when he saw that, he was like, Mama, that happened to you, yeah. That and a whole lot more that I haven't told you about.
And that's what, you know, you and the other Mrs. Willie May Clark
Yes.
Coleman.
Yes.
When I saw her story, and I said to her, "Have you written a book?" And she says, "No, I've not written a book." And I
She
thought,
needs to.
why have you not written a book? How are we going to know what really took place?
Yes.
It's all right, you're talking about future generations,
Yes.
but if they don't know, how are we going to know how to do better by our children if we don't know the story? Because it broke my heart to know that you had to go through that. But then, to me, if you tell your child something and show them, and this is why we're fighting, now they will have that same fighting spirit that you had. But right now, if you don't know something, it's like you're still leaving your child in the dark. And they're going to, you see what I'm saying? So that's why I had to tell her, no, you need to write your story, because you can't just watch it on a play. And if Roots never wrote the story, I wouldn't have even known anything about my roots.
No.
And so we was glad to see Roots. And then after that, they went and tried to say all black people were on drugs, because the next program that we did see was New Jack City.
Oh my God, no. So from Roots to New Jack City?
And then it's New Jack City, where a lot of black people
were on drugs, and they were drug dealers.
And then, you know what I mean, in New Jack City, and I remember Wesley Snipes, and that movie stuck in my head, because, and I'm thinking, wow, is America like that? Well, America isn't like that. As I'm saying, that can distort your mind.
Yes.
And my parents never said, Valerie, this is what Jamaica's like. So the first time I went to Jamaica, I was expecting to go through bushes, and I was expecting to see the plane with runways, like what they portrayed on the movie.
Yes.
And it was nothing like that. My uncle had a better house than what I was living in. But because you don't know, and they're not, your parents are not sharing their story, how are we going to know the real truth?
You won't.
So you know, a lot of you out there who have lived in the 50s and 60s, you need to write a book, you need to share your story, because at the end of the day, your children are growing up and going straight to prison because they don't know what you had gone through. They don't know the truth about, you know what I'm saying? That's why they can go into prison, because they don't see the hardship that you went through. And they don't know. You know what I mean? You talk about, oh, you pick cotton up. Yes, and? It's like saying I went to Walmart, and? It doesn't mean nothing to, it don't mean nothing to my generation, because you've not told us what picking cotton really meant. That you had to be in the field by such and such a time.
You had to be in the field before sun up, and you didn't come in till after the sun went down, way down, 9 at night. So you spent over 16 hours a day in the field.
So when you talk about, oh, we pick cotton, no one's not picking cotton now, so you're not really thinking nothing of it. But we're not going to know the truth if you don't tell us the truth. Because to me, yes, I might not be from this country, but it was a big eye-opener to me.
And that's, every time you say that, I'm going, I guess because America tried, we did all we could to hide the racism that we were dealing with. I guess they must have done a good job of keeping it hidden. You know, I know you guys knew about slavery. I knew that other countries knew about slavery, and that African Americans were enslaved for 400 years. But I just assumed, and that's my ignorance, that you guys knew about everything else that was going on.
No, we didn't. It was, like I said, I was 13 when Roots came on in 1976. And that was when my eyes were open. Oh, okay, okay. So this is what we had to go through. We didn't know.
Yes.
And everybody would be going down the road, Kunta Kinte, Kunta Kinte. You know what I'm saying? Because we didn't know, because our parents never told us. We was like, came from Jamaica, because my dad came there through the Air Force, came to England, and we just went to a school, and no one ever told us anything. We learned about Henry VIII and his 8 wives, and the English history. We never knew nothing about our own history until, shall I tell you now, in England, racism is rampant now, more in England to me than when we was growing up as children.
Really? Why is that?
Because even the other day they wanted to send a lot of the Jamaican and some of those island people back to their own country after we came there, did nursing jobs, did all the work, and now all of a sudden we're not good enough. Oh no, not our English people. not the Jamaicans in England, not the other island people in England. No, oh no. That's why my sister Ruthlyn, she decided to do a reef, and now we've got a day in which she did it, I think it was 2 weeks ago. Now we've got a reef showing us the coffee because of the things that they stole from us.
Right.
So now we've got a day in England, I'm hoping she will do it every single year, and it's a reef with the wool, it's got the cottons and everything on it, and I'm hoping that one day I can get her on my show to ask her why she did this. I mean, openly took a long time to just get even Juneteenth together.
Oh, yes.
And look how long it had to take her to get a Juneteenth.
I'm so glad that she was alive to see it happen.
That's right.
That's just, amazing. I was like, she fought so hard for it. I was like, Lord, just leave her here to be able to see her dream come true.
So is this your very first book?
No, this was the fourth, and I just finished my fifth. My first book was a children's book. The characters talk in my head, and it's about a dumb farmer and his wife. It's called Farmer Brown and Lady Madelyn, the children's story.
Okay.
I wrote that one first, and then the next book was The Blessing. The Blessing is about an abuse. Oh, I need to talk to you about that. The Blessing is about a woman that's being abused. She grew up in a dysfunctional home, and you marry your dysfunction.
That's right.
You marry your dysfunction, so she married her daddy. And he starts to beat her, and that's a whole lot of different situations. Then I wrote the book called The Setup. And the setup, when let's sit back and I look at it, it really was my rebellious childhood when I turned 21. You know how we go, I got a little wild when I turned 21, and I wrote about some of the things that I went through going to the clubs and out in the nightclubs. And I ran into some savory characters. I wrote it in a book. That was my fourth book, and then this was my fourth book, I Want to Go. And I just wrote my fifth book. It's called The Blind Spot. Basically, it tells the story. It's going to be 3 stories, but it tells the story of a young lady. She's in a relationship, and a lot of times we don't see what's right in front of us, fellas. Right. People are telling us, "Girl, he ain't about nothing. But you don't see it. So that's a blind spot because you can't see the forest for the trees." So I wrote it's a short story. And all my books are available on Amazon and my website, DeniseMontgomery.org. But writing has just been a way of life.
So if somebody wanted to contact you, how would they contact you?
My email is, I think it's on the screen as well, inspiredauthor13@gmail.com.
Okay. Is there a phone number that can call you?
214-673-4046.
So you've written 5 books.
Yes, I've been writing all my life, but I just started I put them on paper, but I don't know where they are. So I really started writing again in 2007.
So what else do you do apart from writing? I know you said you do the
I teach GED. I'm active in my church. I work in my church. I'm working with my nonprofit, and I'm real active. I help my family a lot. Basically, I just enjoy helping people, serving. I really do.
So what made you decide to set up a nonprofit?
Because I love working with battered and abused women, so I wanted to be able to help them. And my passion is working with the homeless. I really enjoy doing things for the homeless and putting on things for them to help them out.
Well, you guys, Bumi Ajibade.
Baby Ajibade.
She said hi.
Hi, Bumi.
Hello, Elder.
Yes.
She also wanted to say that racism was not shared openly. And she said Africans were made to feel bad about slavery and that it was their fault. So.
Say that again? I'm sorry.
She said racism wasn't shared openly, so she didn't know about it.
Right.
And she said that Africans were made to feel bad about slavery and that it was their fault.
And that is true.
That's true. That's so sad. That really is. And it wasn't. The Africans didn't make the slave ships come to Africa and get the slaves. So it's the whole system was just messed up.
It was, but it was designed to cover up what was done. And because I know I do a lot of studying, and the true slaves were not Africans. They were white people, but they couldn't take the journey to over here. and they were dying. So when they got here, there was only like I think it was only 12 people left on the ship, and that's how we ended up getting, because black people, we're very resilient. Our skin color can take a lot.
Yes, we can.
And that's how we ended up becoming slaves. But the truth, there's a book that is called 100 Amazing Things About Slavery that we don't even know. So when back in England, I used to do a lot of study. Me and my sister would be on the phone.
Now, did they come as indentured servants? Or they would pay for their passage to get here, or?
No, I can't remember, but I just know that the original slaves were not. But remember that we as black people, we're also our biggest enemy. Sorry to say,
yes,
we are our own biggest enemy, because we let this skin color define who we are, and we get scared of authority because we've been indoctrinated that the darker the skin, the worse you are. And most of the people in Africa, they're really dark-skinned people.
Where did that come from? I don't understand where that came from, the darker the skin, the worse you're. I never understood that.
But because, you know, once a slave master slept with a woman and she had a light-skinned child, then that light-skinned child, it wasn't as bad as being dark. You understand what I'm saying?
True.
So a lot of the times, even when you went to Jamaica, you wouldn't get a dark-skinned person like myself in a bank. They would have all the light-skinned people in banks and in the stores, but now it's changed that dark-skinned people can be in the bank. So it's us, because even we all say, oh, he's red-skinned, she's whatever, you know what I mean? But like, I'm all right with my skin colour, because you know what they say, when you buy a cherry, the dark cherries are always the sweetest. So the darker the berry, the you see what I'm saying? So I'm all right with my dark skin, but for years I wasn't all right with my dark skin, because all my brothers and sisters are lighter than me, and so I felt like I was the one that was made different from everybody else. But I'm glad now, looking back, I'm glad I was made different.
Fearfully and marvelously made. And is it? Yes.
You know what I mean? So, you know what I mean? So, growing up in racism, how did it shape your thinking of who you are today, the person you are today?
At that time, you know, you're growing up, and I would deal with racism getting on the bus to go to school. You know, everywhere you go, you were dealing with it. So at some point, and there were no African American dolls when I grew up. Okay. If you got a doll for Christmas, it was a little white. So what does that say to you? Yeah. What does that say to a child? That says, okay, you're not good enough. That's constantly reinforcing you're not good enough, because there were no black dolls, none. All of the superheroes were white. So when you're growing up, that's steady reinforcing that you're not good enough. And so you have to overcome all of that, and you have to God has to redefine that and let you know you are good enough. You have to, you know, put that in you and believe that yourself. You know, it's just horrible. I didn't remember. At the time, it didn't bother me. It was natural to get a white dog.
It was.
And that was natural because I didn't know any better. But then as I got older, I was going, why aren't there any black dogs in the stores? You know? Why? You know?
I was telling somebody back in England, we had a dog called the Gollywog.
Gollywogger?
A Gollywog. You need to Google the Gollywog dog. If all the listeners out there, it was called Gollywog.
Okay. You know I am. I'm good.
And it was a black dog with a black face, hair like wool, and it used to be under jam jars. So one of the things I remember they used to call us were jam jars. Right.
Are you serious?
I'm serious. And then people started to complain that it was racist, and they took all the gollywogs off the jam jars. You know what I mean? So yeah, we had a dog called the gollywog, and that's what basically, and it was like a blackcurrant jam, and that's what it was called. But looking back now and talking to you, you can see all these little things.
All these little racist things you didn't know.
That you're not thinking that was racist, you know what I'm saying? But it was so weird. Yeah, we had a dog called the Gollywog. And it had a blue, black face.
That's so similar to our syrup containers when we switched from Aunt Jemima on the packaging.
So that's what
remember they removed it.
Okay, you're absolutely right. I hadn't thought about that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, because we grew up with Aunt Jemima Serve. I don't know if you've ever
No,
seen it.
never
Okay,
seen it.
she's probably Google and let her see Aunt Jemima
yeah.
Serve.
I'll Google it
Yeah,
later.
Google it
Right.
because that's what we grew up seeing, Aunt Jemima on the serve and on the pancake box. You know, and it wasn't until years later they removed it. But that's what we grew up seeing. So it was good enough to put it on you know, and all of the shows when we grew up were, if they did have a black character in them, they were stupid or they were acting silly. You know,
And they still do. we used to have a show called Love Thy Neighbor. It was like a white family next door to a black family, and trust me, they would be calling themselves all these different names. That nigger next door, that gollywog, and you're not thinking anything of it. And we'd be sitting there watching these shows, not thinking it was blatant racism.
I had no idea.
And not know. That's what I'm saying. For us, it was they did it in our face that we didn't even think it was racism. Even I don't know if you remember the nursery rhyme, Baba Black Sheep.
Have you in a wool?
Yeah. And then they banned that in England. Trust me, our people, we don't play. Once we find out something, we don't play in England.
That's awesome.
Our black people
Really?
don't know.
That's awesome.
We're not, you know what I mean? Even when we had educational programs to educate black people, once they start seeing us trying to educate each other, they'll pull it, they will let the series run and that will be it. You're not going to get another series. So
That's awesome.
So we don't play when it comes to doing things in England.
Well, you know, Bumi said that she makes sure her sons don't have their hands in their pockets when they go in the store now. And so Linda Mubarak responded that she's correct, that she said she's also a product of the South, the segregated South.
Yes.
So she's agreeing with you.
Yes.
So
Because, and you know, it bothers me now. I know this is my little pet peeve. When I see young men with their pants sagging, that just bothers me. I mean, because they don't know. You know, you don't know. People look at you and I know if somebody's going to send me a nasty message, that's okay. It just bothers me because we can do better. And
that's right.
we can do better. And I just think we should want to do better. That's, you know.
But you know, it's all right you're saying that we can do better, but like you said, you have not spoken to your son about certain things. So if you don't speak to your children about certain things and about racism and about things that are happening, why this isn't right, then they don't know. And so they see a friend doing it, they're going to copy their friends because we're not telling them, look, this is why you shouldn't walk like this is why you shouldn't be acting like this. This is why we try not to make you listen to the music, because the world now is taking, remember in the 70s you had Endless Love, you had Diana Ross, you had Lionel Richie, you had the Commodores, you had the Stylistics, right? You had all these people and they were singing about love, and then everyone says, oh no, you can't sing about love, you got to start singing about rap, you got to sing about gun killing.
Maltreatment of women, abusing
you
women.
understand what I'm saying? But if we don't teach our children that this is not how it's supposed to be, then they grow up thinking that this is right. So that's why I'm saying all this racism and everything, until we start talking and letting our children know what we've gone through, they will never ever know how hard your struggle was. Because I see you go into a cash point, putting money in a cash machine. One time you couldn't do that.
True.
You understand what I'm saying? But they think money comes out of cash machine. And
they never understand. You have to put that in that cash machine.
That's right.
Yeah, they don't, because they don't understand.
Because we are not telling them.
We're not telling them.
So it's not, sometimes for me, you can't blame the children, you got to blame the parents, because we're not educating our children. You know what I mean? So your son needs to know something of what you went through, so he can turn around and says, I don't want this for my child, so now I'm going to do better. So when I have my child, that child is going to be up there and not down there. My child is going to be the head and not the tail.
Yes. Above and not beneath.
You understand?
Yes.
But if you're not telling them, how they're going to know that you came from up there? They're going to think you was up there all the time, and now they don't really have to do much.
No, and that is so not true. That is so not true.
So you've got to tell your children, you've got to talk to your children, so when they get into circumstances, they know how to deal with it. When they meet up with a police officer, they know how
Yes.
to deal with it. When they see things going on in the road or in the street, they know how to deal with it appropriately and not come like an aggressive person, because that's what they want to label us all the time, that we're
That's it.
aggressive. When we're not aggressive, but it's
No,
being assertive.
but we've been stereotyped that way, that we are
Mhm.
aggressive, but we're not. I mean, anybody's gonna fight back if you put them in a situation where they have to fight back. But just a normal traffic stop, I don't have to be treated badly. You stop me, okay, just talk to me like I'm a human.
That's right.
But that's all you gotta do is talk. And now my son does tell me that, my son is very quiet. I mean, he'll just, you just chill, be calm. If you get all riled up, then they're gonna get all riled up. But if you don't tell them, baby, you don't have to act like that.
That's right.
You don't, you have to tell them.
So I'm going to ask you one last question before we close our show.
Yes.
Right? What does "Don't Believe the Hype" mean to you?
Oh, I thought about that. Until you know the story, don't believe what everybody is telling you. I believe that if you have to go and look for yourself. So if you tell me something, just like you just told me about gollywogs, I'm going to go look it up.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to go look it up. So don't believe the hype, to me, believes, don't take it at face value. You have to believe, you have to set your own values. You have to do what you have to do for yourself. And don't believe everything that's put in front of you.
That's right.
Yes.
And that's so true, because it's so easy to believe
It
what
is.
is in front of you.
I mean, because we don't, they put it on the news. Well, it's got to be true.
That's right, and always not stopping to think, is it
No.
really true? And even when you can see it's a lie, people still want to believe the...
Well, it's on the news.
That's
If it's on the
right.
news, it's got to be true, right? And that's when you said that's not even how that happened. That's
No.
not even what we're supposed to do. But we have a tendency, because it's easier to believe
That's
what
right.
you see, and rather than going and investigating.
Now that's why this show is called "Don't Believe the Hype."
I love that.
And that's why people say to me, well, why is the hype upside down? And I say, yeah, because I want you to look and think out of the box. I don't want you to think in the box like everybody else, because we're all unique. So
Yes.
I would like to tell you all, thank you for tuning into our
Yes.
Don't Believe the Hype show, and I would like to
Thank
you
you
once
so
again
much
for coming on to our
Thank you
show.
so much. I so
And,
enjoyed it.
Yes, she's got to go all the way back to Dallas, but I
Yes.
really appreciate that she came in our studio today. Like I said, if anybody would like to come onto our show, you are welcome to come onto our show. I'm just Valerie. I'm just going to take you as you are, you know what I mean? And let's have some fun. Let's educate the people in the world that it doesn't have to be on racism, it could be anything. You could have a non-profit that you want to highlight. Just because I've got a non-profit, that don't mean you can't highlight your non-profit, because there's enough for everybody if we all was to pull together as a community and as one. So I will see you again in a few weeks' time on our next Don't Believe the Hype show, where we will have another amazing guest in front of you. So have a wonderful and blessed evening, and God bless you all, and good night.
Bye-bye.
Bye.